Hello! Everybody knows me, right? My name is Jonathan Jones, just call me JJ. But what you probably don't know about me is that I have a bachelor's degree in creative writing. That's right, a bachelor's degree is a 4-year degree, but it took me 6 years to finish. I wanted to be a writer. And I was, or I am. I learned how to write screenplays for movies and TV shows, and stage plays, and short stories. I did write and professionally produced 2 stage plays, worked with the actors, worked with the director, got paid money for this. Not much, but got some. So my background in writing really helps me to teach writing. I don't really teach creative forms, of course. I'm not going to teach you how to write a short story or a poem. But it does help me to teach you to write essays or other forms of writing, how to make your writing more interesting, how to make it sound better, what kinds of issues to avoid. Advanced writing in 4 tips. 4. Number 1 is cliché. This word actually comes from French, but in English, a cliché is an overly used phrase. You might think you're remembering a great idiom and using it in your writing, but if it's overly used or used too much, it's going to be kind of boring, and it won't make your writing creative or original. Even if you're writing an essay or a letter, the goal of writing is to put words together that have never been put together before. No 2 essays are alike. No 2 stories are alike. You gotta be original. So here are some common cliches to avoid. Every hand has 2 sides. Of course they have 2 sides. If you only have one side, you're a one-sided person, which is another idiom meaning you're boring. Every coin has 2 sides. Obviously. Why are you telling us this? These are both cliches to mean there's 2 sides to every story. Sometimes you're just better off saying that. There's 2 sides to every story. Or you could say, on the flip side. But not those 2 cliches. Idioms can be cliches if they're overused, like kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This is not a good phrase to use because it's just memorized. You probably don't even totally know what it means. You might know when to use it. Also, why are you killing birds? Why are you harming animals? I just don't like this phrase, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It means you do 2 things at the same time. But it's overly used. Read between the lines. This one sounds like a great idiom, but again, it's so overly used. Used way too much. It's not going to make your writing sound interesting or unique or special. It might sound like you just copied and pasted from a book of idioms or an online source of idioms. Don't use these cliches. Discourse markers. These are often used in speaking, little words to connect our ideas or start our sentences. But there's a few that are so overly used. These would definitely be for essay writing. They're so overused that there's an actual section for this on the IELTS Writing Task, or at least the scoring system. There's a section that says overuse of discourse markers. You can't get a very high band score on the IELTS writing test if you're overusing discourse markers, or you're using some of the way too common discourse markers, such as day by day, as time goes by, or even writing a classic story, once upon a time. That's not really a discourse marker, that's just starting a story in a horribly cliched way. More and more. Yeah, those are just boring phrases. The problem is I hear a lot of my students And candidates who I'm helping prepare for the IELTS test, they'll overuse these in their writing. Like 4 times they'll say day by day as time goes by and just repeat them. Memorized phrases that don't add any quality to your writing. There are some good ones. I'll make a separate post for a different time on good, more varied discourse markers. But for now, avoid those 3. Items in a series, also called parallel or parallelism. This is when you have 3 or more items in your sentence, 3 things in your sentence, and you'll need some commas in your sentence. You've got to have all 3 the same form. So here's an example of what I mean. Here's a bad example. I like to go hiking, skiing, and to go fishing. All 3 are the ing forms, hiking, skiing, fishing, but you don't need the to go. These are gerunds or gerunds, a kind of noun, the ing action name for the noun. All you need to say is, I like to go hiking, skiing, and fishing. Shorter is better. The word is concise. Be as concise as you can. Say as much as you can with as little as you can. That's the power of writing. That shows your true writing ability. Here's another example. Poor JJ spent the morning cooking, cleaning, and washed the clothes. So now we have 2 gerund forms, the 2 ings, plus a past tense verb. But we don't need that. We can just do all ings. Poor JJ spent the day cooking, cleaning, and washing the dishes, washing the floors, whatever needs to be washed. Could you do all past tense verbs on this? Maybe. Poor JJ spent the morning. Nope, it doesn't work. You've already got spent as the verb in this sentence. That's the verb. That's past tense. That's it. Move on. All right, time for one of my favorites. This is called alliteration. Alliteration is actually called a poetic device. This is used in creative forms of writing, such as poetry, to make your writing sound interesting. It's the repeated consonant sounds. It could be the B sounds, the C's, the F's, just about anything. And usually it's the first letter that's repeated, but it doesn't have to be. It's just the same sound repeated. This is actually more common than you think. It's used in news headlines to make the news story sound interesting. Of course, it's used in short fiction or poetry. It's also used in dialogue. More artistic forms of dialogue, spoken dialogue by characters in movies and plays. I'm going to give you an example in a moment. But here are some more common examples of alliteration. Frequent flyers. This is a kind of an airline promotion. If you fly a lot, you'll get discounts. The frequent flyer program. Why FF? Because they match. You could use other words. The Common Traveler Program. Doesn't sound as good. The Deadly Dynamite Disaster! That could be a news story where someone was playing with dynamite and blew themselves up. The Deadly Dynamite Disaster. Got your D sounds in there. Prince Pressures Papers. I actually saw this news story recently. This was about Prince Harry and his wife. What's the wife's name? The American wife that he has. They really disliked the tabloid newspapers. They were taking too many photos. They were stalking them and trying to sneak in some photos. And I believe they sued the tabloids. I believe they launched a lawsuit against the tabloids. And the news story read, Prince Pressures Papers. Papers is another word for newspapers or anything in the news. Tabloid news. All right, for the true artistic example, Shakespeare. That's right, I'm actually going to give you some Shakespeare. Not that you should study English like this. You should not be using Shakespeare to study English. It's literature. We still use it in our high school system to study English. I still think it's not a good idea. I've always thought it's quite irrelevant. But the way he wrote was quite fun. I'm going to read. This comes from Romeo and Juliet, Prologue, Act 1. So basically one of the first things they say. I'm going to do my best actor voice, my best Shakespeare actor voice, perhaps in a fake British accent. From forth the fatal lines of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life. From forth the fatal lions of these two foes. What exactly does that mean? From forth, that means they're coming from a place. The fatal loins of these two foes. Fatal means deadly. Foes mean enemy. And if you know anything about Romeo and Juliet, there's two families that are fighting each other. The fatal foes, the deadly enemies. And people do die in this story. Actually, a lot of people die. It's a tragedy. Shakespeare wrote like this. Almost every writer writes like this. Shakespeare was writing in a more poetic form. That's what he's famous for. But this doesn't mean this isn't relevant to you. You can use alliteration in your writing. You can use alliteration in your headlines or your titles for a story. It can even be used in essay writing. It makes it sound more interesting, more elegant, more unique. It will definitely add some level of quality to your writing. I definitely recommend trying this one out. Practice with alliteration. If you do need any help with this, some help with alliteration or any form of writing, definitely contact me. I'm also an essay coach. I know how to help you improve your essay writing. I can give you tasks. You can send them back to me by email, or we can meet online to discuss the writing. The length doesn't matter. 250 words, 25 pages. I know how to help you. I used to be a professional proofreader in Japan, so I know how to make notes. I can use Microsoft Word. There's an option in Word called Track Changes, and it highlights every change I make in red, and I can send the file back to you. Or, of course, Google Documents. Just about any form of writing I can help you with. All right? Advanced Writing with JJ.